Welcome to Actually Controller, the podcast that is actually Controller, and we are actually in control of everything you are hearing right now. I'm so very sorry.
All right, so I suppose Steve should start this because he's the one that came back from Georgia that I talked to and was like, hey, we should start a band. That's how it all started, actually. Oh, I guess I totally started it. I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to episode 5 of Actually Controller. This is Steve.
I'm Chad.
This is Jeff.
As Jeff kind of alluded to already, this week's episode, we're going to kind of start talking about where the inception of the band was.
The inception. I like that word.
Dun, dun, dun.
The
very beginnings.
The start, where it kind of came up from and how we got to where we're at now.
When I was a very young lad.
Oh, God. Not that far back. Not that far back.
Good Lord.
So, I mean, like, if we got to be real about it, Steve, when I met you, I was supposed to beat you up, and then we talked music, and I was like, I don't hate him enough to beat him up, but I might start a band with him. But that was still decades after. Technically,
not
when
decades.
I met Chad, he was in a whole nother band with other people that are in the scene, and yeah, I was still jelly back then and wanted him in my band as well. So,
oh yeah, you I guess quote unquote had already started the scouting process before I had even started the scouting process, because in a roundabout way I had already pre-scouted most of the band for you before you scouted me, if you will, quote unquote, really because it would have been in my old band Six Lives Out that we had hit a point where our drummer had left, and we had brought in Controller's original drummer to Six Lives Out, Brandon Braun, and rolled with that for a little while, where we had the same layout of Six Lives Out minus the drummer. Yep. Our bassist ended up leaving, and not even really leaving. We kind of ended up booting him because he stopped showing up.
I mean, when you stop showing up, it's like you're basically going to be not part of the band.
And we lucked out that actually Chad had his best buddy decide to leave him high and dry here in good old Indiana. And that kind of just dismembered his band. And broke that whole thing up.
For that one,
And I vividly remember the conversation at our old stomping ground, Legends. We were just gotten done playing a show. Six Lives Out and their old band, Lucidus, had just gotten done playing a show, and Randy had walked up to me, and he this is before we booted our bassist, and he goes, so, I don't know if you guys know, but I'm leaving. I'm moving out of state. And you need to take him, Chad, and put him in your band. I was like, but we already got a bassist. He goes, I don't care. You need to put Chad in your band. And I'm like, well, if we're ever in a situation where we need another bassist,
and lo and behold,
I'll consider it.
People love me.
Lo and behold.
Well,
I mean, honestly, even if you still had the other bassist, you could just have two bassists.
Well, funny you should mention that. We'll get into that idea here in a little bit. But, yeah, Randy actually, I think we had like one or two more shows even after that one. That we had with Lucidus still before he moved, and each time Randy came up to me, so you ready to put Chad in the band yet? And I'm like, dude, we got a bassist. It was the last show I think that we played, or I'm like, well, things are a little bit iffy right now with our bassist and everything. So he goes, so you're gonna put him in the band? I'm like, I'll ask if he wants to join.
I really gotta say something. This is kind of off topic, but that place, Legends, that stinking bar, dude.
I love that
I
bar.
don't know why. Every time I was in a band, we'd end up playing there, and it would never fail. We'd be like, yeah, we're just doing this for fun. We'd play a show, surrounded by our friends. No, it wasn't like it was some huge show or anything, but everybody got the itch right after playing that stage of, oh yeah, we're going to do the things.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to just keep going at this, and we're going to do... I honestly think it was like some weird something about that bar, because it was like bands that were basically not even like serious got up on that stage and were like, yo, we could do this for a living.
Well, so there are anomalies in the earth that there's a higher gravitational pull, and I'm convinced one of them was at Legends.
That makes sense.
Yes.
That does make sense.
Legends just had that energy that like the fan base that would show up to Legends to support the bands would show the bands that this is the way it is.
The sound quality was such trash.
It was.
It was.
Don't mind the neighbor who, you all are too loud. Where we would get noise violations at the bar while playing a show from a neighbor 2 streets over.
So in and around the time that Lucidus was a thing, and Chad was playing in that band, and Six Lives Out was a thing, and I was in a band called
Three Simple Words at that point.
At that point, we were all kind of actively playing this one bar, and sometimes together. Yeah, and setting up shows. But it was like members started dropping out of our other like archetype works, and then this guy decides, this Steven guy, that's who I'm pointing at right now.
Yeah,
there, just to make it real. He decided that he was going to move away.
Yeah, way out of state,
and go to Georgia, and he was gone for. You were gone for a couple months.
A couple years.
No, I was gone for a little over a year.
Was it a little?
Yeah, I was gone for a little over a year, and
well, as soon as he got back into town.
I know during the time he was gone, I didn't play at all.
Yeah, as soon as he got back into town, though, he came over and hung out at my house, and I was like, "Hey, we should start a band."
And my exact words were,
"Heck no."
But it wasn't even that. It was the fact that at that point in time, you had a lot going on in your personal life.
I mean, that's fair.
And as a friend level, not just a musician, but as a friend level, I was not willing to sit there and consider myself the possible culprit of you distracting from things you needed to focus on in your life. So I'm like, nope, not going to do it.
I mean, however, be fair, I didn't focus on him even though. So it's
I know you didn't.
And my life is still doing great. I feel 100% all the time.
Always. But
except for when I don't.
Yeah. The other 99%. But
I would say it's closer to like 90.
Well, see, I'm a little bit weird on the whole timeline on the forming of the band, because I remember Steve calling me before he moved back from Georgia. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to be moving back. Are you going to want to jam together?"
Well, yeah, because that was like, he had mentioned that you guys had already talked and were talking about getting together to jam, and I'm like, well, I want to join. How about we start a band instead?
Well, what had actually really happened at the very beginning is I had hit up Chad, I had hit up Bob actually before I had ever even hit up anybody else while I was still down in Georgia, because Six Lives Out had broken up. However, we had ended up recording all the instrumentation for an entire album.
And he was looking to
that
finish.
Never got any vocals recorded over the top of it. So I had hit up Bob, and I was like, hey, this isn't going to ever really go any place, but it would be great just to have a finished album. If you would be down to, possibly write and record some vocals over the top of this, that would be awesome. I don't know if it's ever really going to hit stores. I don't know if we're ever going to try to push it, but if nothing else, it's at least a keepsake, quote unquote, if you will, for me to have, and anybody else from the band that would want it, of a finished album.
Heck, I just completely train wrecked that then.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No, you didn't train wreck it. You just didn't have the privy of all of the stuff leading up until where the option for Contrøller really happened, because what ended up happening was I had hit Chad up. I had already been in talks with Bob, and our old friend Kevin. I had already been in contact with him and everything. And I had hit up Brandon, and I was like, hey, look, I'm going to be moving back. My old job offered me my job back with more money and all that stuff. So we're going to be moving. If you guys are down to jam, I wouldn't mind possibly seeing if we could try to re-put back together some version of Six Lives Out.
So do you all remember when we weren't supposed to make this like a band? It was like, no, we're just playing.
Oh, yeah, it was supposed to be just fun.
Well, before that, though, this is the conversation that leads into the 2 bass player thing.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
So I had hit up Kevin and I was like, hey, would this be something that you'd be interested in? He goes, actually, I'm already kind of in the process of building and working out a whole other band right now, but we're still missing a drummer and a second guitarist. But if you guys are down, we can kind of just merge what I have going with what you guys are trying to build with Six Lives Out, where we have 2 bass players, then 1 drummer, 2 guitars, plus the keys, and then we can have possibly 2 vocalists. It was going to be like this weird amalgamated Slipknot, but not heavy enough thing. And I was like, let me talk to Chad about this one, see where Chad's at. And Chad's like, I don't know. We can give it a try and see how it works.
To be honest, this isn't the first time I tried to run dual bass.
Gig, I mean, like there's a couple bands in town that are doing it currently that are better.
Yeah, but awesome. the funny thing is that the second bass player, and this shows how tight-knit our little circle already was, our second quote-unquote bass player was going to be one of your old bass players from Pinion way back in the day, which was Eric. Yeah. So it was going to be this weird amalgamation and everything. It ended up being where we ended up, the keyboardist that we thought we were going to have didn't end up working out.
That was that female.
No. That was the one after the one that we originally thought we were going to have wasn't going to work out. I can't remember her name.
Melissa. Not even really.
Yes, Melissa. And she didn't end up working out for us. And it was kind of just one of those, this is just turning into a train wreck. And we immediately just said, screw it. We're not trying.
My dad's always pushing that we need a female singer. He's always like, I actually don't mind the music you guys are writing, but like, yeah. And I'm like, but Bob's great. And he's like, but if you had a female singer, it would be a lot easier.
Well, just let Bob know he needs to do some surgery scheduling. But
I don't think he'll go for it.
Maybe. Then he's not devoted to the band. But
yeah,
it was
make that a tier thing. Like so many people on Patreon donate. No. We're gonna stop there.
Yeah, don't go down that pathway.
People actually start throwing money.
Yeah.
It's not
but
good.
what ended up happening was we just the whole attempt to rebrand Six Lives Out turned into a hot dumpster fire. We called it, and then I came over to your house.
I was like, start a band with me.
I was like, well, no, because I don't want to distract you from what's going on.
They're like, whatever, start a band with me.
So
I'm not distracted. I'm so not distracted that I'm staring right at the camera. Start a band with me.
So I'm like, all right, if we're going to do this, I guess I already technically, in certain respects, have a band in a box, if you will, kind of sitting there that
and he started
just a month ago.
I'm like, Brandon, I'm not sure if I know him. Turns out I really knew him fairly well.
So well. That's a story we cannot share.
That's sorry.
I'm sorry about that one. There are certain things that are great stories that we would love to share. It's just not.
And then Jeff knew me from a long time ago.
As soon as you threw Todd's name down, I was like, okay, dope, because I would love to. That would be awesome.
Yep. And then with Bob actually was not only a lead singer in one of my old bands from way back that actually also used to play with Lucidus.
He was also in my band called Pinion at that time. And during that time, Bob was going through a lot, so he didn't show up to practice a whole bunch, and I had the wonderful pleasure of pulling the shortest straw and having to tell him that he was out of Pinion.
And keep in mind, nobody else in Contrøller other than Jeff was ever in Pinion.
Yeah. So then it was like, when I saw Bob, I'm like, hey, you're singing for me. It's a little backwards, like the way it was around the last time. But it worked out. It worked out well. I was very happy.
But yeah, it ended up being where Jeff ended up kind of cornering me. We were up at a local restaurant / bar.
Yep.
And me and my wife Em and him were all hanging out because it was right down the street from where he was living at that point. And he was just, you need to start a band for me. I promise. I got my personal stuff going. It's not going to distract. I need this. This is something that we've talked about doing for years, because Jeff and I had actually already years prior gotten together just for the heck of it to see if we could work together.
Okay, to be fair, we hung out.
To be fair.
And worked at the same places, like back to back to back for quite a while, too. We were around each other in orbit of what each other was doing musically. And at a certain point, I'm like, look, man, I know all about your projects. I have about the same like headset about the sort of music I want to go after. You know about all my projects. You know about the same headset of about where I'm trying to get to with music. Why don't we just work together?
Well, and the concept was always cool on paper, but up until the time that I went over to your house
we would
to actually,
heads a lot.
well, I mean, it made sense on paper, but we had never actually tried it in application until the night that I went over to your house.
Oh yeah, and
just for the heck of it. There was no anticipation of what was going to happen. We had no preconceived notion that we were going to end up writing anything or anything was going to be worth a damn if we did write something. We ended up getting together that day, figuring out how each other worked, writing an entire song, and recording an entire song.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
In one night.
Then
sat on it for like 6 years and never did anything with it.
And I was like, well, we always got that one song.
Yeah. And then Contrøller ended up happening. That song ended up being released eventually, actually, as an expanded edition of Undefined. The song is called Perfect Silence.
Perfect Silence. And it's such a weird song because we are really weird people. Honestly, I think that if we didn't have the other members to kind of dial us back, we'd just write weird stuff.
Yeah, probably.
Well, that hasn't stopped you guys.
It has kind of.
It is corralled the levels of weirdness.
Wait, yeah, like
Okay, I'll take that one. But
like we're
there's
no
still
longer
weird
coming
stuff.
to you going like this is in 7/8 and then it goes to 3/3 and then it goes back to 7/8 for just a moment before it goes back to 3/3.
Hey, the newest weird thing though has nothing to do with him or I. The
That's
newest
true.
weird thing has to do with Chris.
Yeah, dude. And
He
Chris is-
wrote me a 10/8.
Oh,
That's
I know,
verse.
I know. Chris is like, no, this needs to be like this. It's on our TikTok of Chris telling you, no, like this.
Yeah. So, yeah, the newest weird has nothing to do with apparently Jeff and I. It's infectious,
No,
apparently.
we've chilled our role and allowed others to take on the moniker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But kind of getting back to the very beginning of everything, after you and I had talked, it was one of those, okay, let me hit up the rest of the guys, see if they're interested.
And that's when Kevin was coming at us. He's like, so we're just getting started. I need to take a break.
Yeah.
And that's when he
Because
decided
technically
to drop.
this was a 6-piece band at the very, very beginning.
Yeah, and then he opted out to drop because he had too much happening in his life.
Yep. But yeah, this was the Contrøller at the very, very beginning for the
But it
first
had
couple
two
months.
Guitarists,
Yeah, it had 2 guitarists and it was with Kevin. He had some stuff going on, so he needed to step out. But we kind of all looked at it as it's such a beginning stage right now. We haven't really written anything that is absolutely imperatively needing 2 guitars at this point.
Yeah.
Do we really want to keep going and hunting for another guitarist, or do we want to just roll this with one guitar? Because the other thing, this is a big factor of it, the expectations for the band were so small at that point in time. We weren't even worried necessarily about finding another one.
I think we only got together to jam like once a month at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like
Was like if you got the time and like the attitude about it too is
and
like
for
what
this
time we
first
start
6
now?
months, I never got to meet the singer.
Yeah, every rehearsal, because you were able to come to most rehearsals, but there was always those few that popped up in that first 6 months. I would say that like 5 or 6 out of the first 6 months where you're like, I had to do some OT, I'm not able to show up or anything like that. And it would always be that rehearsal that Bob was able to actually make.
Yeah.
And so for the first 6 months of the band, Chad and Bob didn't even know who each other were.
I was starting to doubt that we actually had a singer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now like they play D&D.
Yeah,
they see each other more than
Let
we
me
do.
tell you about my best friend.
Yeah, we turned into big gaming friends.
Gaming nerd.
But yeah, the very beginning was the 6-piece, and yeah, there was no plan of it being where we're really going to write anything or even learn covers. It was kind of we're going to get together once a month, and not to try to typecast anybody by saying this, but we were quintessentially going into every month rehearsal as a view of this is nothing more than a dad garage band type
dad
mentality.
garage band.
Where
It's like
we're
we
all
might play a kegger party.
If whatever comes up, type thing.
I mean,
Maybe.
to be honest, like I think what finally set the fire under our butts is when
The
we
recording.
went to record our
Yeah.
demo, our first demo.
Yeah, and then when we started looking back at it and going, okay, hey, this is...
Well, we went in because
legit.
we accidentally wrote like 3 songs.
Yeah.
let's call it.
Accidentally.
I mean, the reality is Shadows Left Behind
Yeah.
was an old song from Six Lives Out,
Yes.
and we were at the very beginning of all this. We were just kind of trying to find a common ground of the what can we jam together.
Right.
If nobody has like all the same covers that they're knowledgeable of, we can't just grab a cover that we can all just jam to. We don't have any original material to
Yeah.
just play, so
I mean, we were fairly novice. I'm not gonna lie, dude. Like, it's not like any of us were super heavy in like knowing a crap ton of material that
No.
we had practiced or super rehearsed.
and none
It
of
was
us
just
were out of a cover
desire.
band at that point in
Yeah.
time where we had a repertoire.
All
to
of us
pull
were from original bands, so
Yep.
it was weird.
So yeah, we're just kind of there going, all right, well, what do we do? And with the fact that me and Chad and Brandon had all come from Six Low, it was one of those, okay, the 3 of us already kind of have some songs
Like a wheelhouse.
that we have some remembrance of. Are you and Bob willing to possibly try to, hop in, and we can just at least have something to try to jam?
Right.
Not that we're trying to actually reinvent the wheel or anything, just something to jam together.
And then we reinvented the wheel.
Then we reinvented at least Shadows Left Behind.
Yeah.
And
then Turmoil got wrote.
yeah, and then Turmoil got written, and then The New Beginning started getting worked on, and then Jeff had the song Cold that he had been sitting on for years and years prior.
And then we one afternoon decided to write Void, and I think that was like the cinch right there when we were like,
Possibly,
okay,
but
yeah, that one was weird. Crazy
well,
weird.
the big thing though is that we got done writing Turmoil because Shadows Left Behind was one of those fun ones. Like, cool, we got something to play together.
Yeah.
But if it had never gotten recorded, it would have been fun to have, but it was never going to be a, oh man, I lost out on that type thing. But as soon as we wrote Turmoil, it was one of those, it'd be nice to have a recording of this. Even if we don't ever do anything with this project, it'd be nice to have a recording. We went into a studio that I had done an internship with way back in high school, and I knew the engineer already, and I was talking to him like, hey, this is kind of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make this huge production where it's, fine-tuning everything. We kind of just want a live on the floor recording.
Yeah.
So we went in there,
And then
kind
at
of a
the very
knockout,
end
drag
of
out.
it- At the very end of it, he's like, I can reverse those symbols over there.
Yeah, and all of a sudden we start doing some production tweaks.
Like, wait a minute, hold on. No, we're not paying extra. We got to get
Yep.
going.
So we get done with that song, and it was one of those, screw it. Let's go ahead and throw it up. We got a Facebook page because that was the thing to do and everything. So we threw it out
Obviously.
there. Yeah, and then all of a sudden the weird thing happened. We got positive response.
Yeah, people were like, when are you guys playing out?
And we're like, we had no plans of playing out. Well, what other songs do you have? We don't really have any other songs.
Write more, play out.
What are you guys doing? Nothing in particular. Why do you care? And everything. And all of a sudden it's, should we take this seriously?
Yeah, and then, like, I never answered him, but then we started doing it seriously anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
I find it funny. Like in the beginning, when I was given what the name of the band was,
Yeah.
at first I'm like Contrøller. I don't really like that until I saw the artwork that came with it.
Yeah.
And once I saw the Tree of Life and the man meditating, I'm like, oh yeah, that's.
I mean, it
that,
was...
I understand Contrøller now.
The core of it was just, like, anything that's happening in your life, it's, like... Because he was right, okay? To be fair, I've been a troublemaker for a very long time. And I was going through some financial and emotional issues. We'll put it that way. That's
Yep.
a good way to put it. And during that time, anybody that's ever had to do like any 12-step program gets a stupid little coin that says you are ultimately in control of the chaos that you allow into your life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how many times I'd sat through, conversations like that, and like, all right, man, so it's all up to the controller. I was just going to name it that. Then there was another flip side of that, where me and Steven working through music or having discussions about music shows or what have, we have a habit of arguing. I don't know if you've ever been able to like
I've
notice.
What are you talking about? I've never once argued with you.
experienced this.
Exactly. So there was this era of it, because I have a tendency to be a little more artsy floaty at times about things. And
I'm very analytical.
That we would not allow any one of us to have absolute control of this project. We were serving the project rather than the project serving us. And that was a different stance to take on what was happening. Like, we weren't allowed to write something in for the sake of writing it in. It had to actually serve the song.
Yeah, but when the name got tossed to me, I had no context other than Contrøller.
Yeah.
And him coming from the mindset of a gamer,
yeah,
more often than not.
True.
It was one of those without context.
You mean like Contrøller?
Yeah.
Until the artwork came, I'm like, oh no, this is a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, a lot deeper.
Well, and that was by a fluke. That might be. We'll make that the next episode. We'll talk about the actual artwork and the inceptions of the artwork and all that type of stuff.
All the arguments over the artwork.
Yeah.
First.
Because we'll get into some of the actual logoing artwork down to some of the album artwork and all that type of stuff.
We could have been an eyeball. I was really leaning towards Eyeballville for a little while.
Don't give away too much. Make them come to the next one.
Oh, sorry. Come to the next one.
But, yeah.
Hey, I'm talking to you. Come to the next one.
Thank
you. What are you doing? Go to the next one. Not yet, though. Wait until this one.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, just to kind of wrap up what the whole base of the band was, the concept of this band was supposed to be nothing more than 5 guys who, in some capacity, at least at that point in their lives...
Sorry,
I was right on that side.
It's like nobody said it.
I totally missed it.
Wait, now, go back to what you were talking about. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to completely off-rail that. I sort of derailed it there. Sorry.
There you go. But... But the reality is that this band was supposed to be nothing more than, at the very inception of the project, kind of at that point 6 guys who in some capacity kind of felt like they had already done the thing, hit their prime in the local scene, and kind of just wanted to jam.
Yeah.
And ironically, that was now 11 plus years ago.
Apparently we really wanted to jam, and it was just kind of one of those situations of like, mess around and find out.
Yeah,
and as we
after
messed
the around and find out.
Yeah, and as we messed around and found out, we found that we could go a lot further with it, and that's all thanks to you guys. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much. Because the reality is that we've had many of moments in the course of this project that we truly thought, okay, this is the end of it and everything. And it wasn't necessarily because...
Never!
Yeah. And it wasn't because we didn't like what we were doing. It's not because we ever had bad experiences playing out for you guys and the interactions or anything, or that we didn't feel appreciated and loved from the fan base.
No, I mean,
it was all internal stuff, though.
The amount of love that we got for just playing out. I mean, now, mind you, a lot of it was, friends and family adjacent, but the amount of love that we got in some of those early shows.
But every band starts out where their first fan base is always going to be the friends and family and everything.
But, okay.
We appreciate you still showing up.
Now, mind you,
yes.
We played a lot at this place called the VIP. It was also called
Drunken Monkey.
The Drunken Monkey. And that was one of our original stomping grounds, as well as we were as Contrøller. But when we finally got to our first real release, we played over at a
Columbia Street West. It's no longer around.
Yeah, a bar called Columbia Street West. It's no longer around. And so at Columbia Street West, though, we hit capacity there, and it was like truly kind of unexpected, like having that many people show up for our first full-length CD.
Well,
release.
Not only were we at capacity, we cycled capacity.
Yeah,
3 different times
that was
because
crazy.
The bar had overfilled, hit fire capacity, and they were keeping a clicker while people were leaving. They were permitting enough people back in.
And we were still officially nobody,
yeah.
What is even happening?
So, yeah, the 15 or 1,600 total head count that bar permitted at that point was just unreal. I mean, I still sit back and think to this day, I don't know what we did to deserve that show.
We gave flyers to cops. That's what we did. We ran cops.
Jeff gave flyer to cop.
You guys ran with me. You didn't know where I was running.
No. We didn't run with you. We ran after you to try to stop you.
They did show up, though.
They did.
Yeah, and they drank.
Somehow, they were probably there to check for fire capacity.
They probably were.
They were there doing their job.
Yeah, they were there to do their job. They wanted to let them know if they wanted to see if they needed to call the fire marshal.
I remember them specifically sitting down in the back during. Who was the first opener?
That would have been actually a band that's done quite well for themselves here in town. Thematic.
Oh, yeah.
Thematic was our opener for that show.
They were there when Thematic hit the stage.
Yep.
And then we had Thematic and...
It was a big show.
Yeah, it was a big show. We had Thematic on. We had RP Wigs on. We had Bombshells that also performed that night. We had us, obviously. We had Autovator playing.
Autovator, that's right.
I'm sorry. I was like about to call them Shane's other band.
Yeah, don't do that.
And I'm like, wait, that's not right.
Yeah. But yeah, we had built a big, elaborate show where we had performances, burlesque performances during the changeovers for all the bands.
Really well done.
Yeah, we had put a lot of effort into building that show, but either way, that still doesn't make you think you're going to hit capacity at a 1,500 to 1,600 person
on a
venue.
Weekend. On no less.
It was
on a weekend, no less. When everybody else would usually flock to someplace else on the landing. You know what I mean?
So either way, it was an amazing show, but we've had quite a few awesome things happen in the course of this band. Again, thanks to everybody that has supported us over all the years.
You guys are so cool.
We appreciate you beyond belief, but we're going to probably leave it there because we're already a little bit long on this episode, but thank you so much for checking out this episode. Yes. Next episode, we're going to kind of talk about the artwork.
Ooh, artwork.
The iconography of Contrøller.
And how it's
because we've put way too much thought and effort into all of it over all these years.
Super hidden right out in the open. And some of you know what that means.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you
for checking out this episode. See you next week.
Love you guys.
Thank you for listening to Actually Contrøller. If you liked what you heard, please consider following us on all our socials. You can easily find us on all the different platforms by going to linktree/Contrøller33 or scan the QR code if you are watching the video version of this episode. Thank you.